Welcome to The Economy. How do you measure that? Where we break down what's really going on in the economy one transaction at a time. I'm your host, Jim Tebrake. Today's episode, World Cup player transfers. How do you measure that? One of the biggest stories during and after the World Cup is often the transfer market. A player has an incredible tournament. Suddenly their value skyrockets, and clubs from around the world start bidding tens, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars. But here's the question: how do statisticians record a football player transfer when clubs are in different countries? To help us understand this, I'm joined by Sanchez Munoz. Now, Carlos, let's start with a simple example. Suppose there's a club in Spain, you're wearing the Spanish national jersey very proudly, I'm sure, and they buy a player from a club in Argentina for $80 million. How would you record that?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here today, Jim, and also for giving me the opportunity to speak about one of my favorite sports, soccer, football. So if a Spanish club buys an Argentinian player, is not buying the player or the services that the player provides. Is buying the rights to use the player under certain conditions. Think of it as if you were buying a software license or the rights to show a movie. You are not buying the company that makes the movie, you are just buying the rights to use those under certain conditions. And this is recorded in the balance of payments as a non-produced, non-financial asset in the capital account.
Okay, so it's not a service transaction?
No, because the player has not started to play for the club yet. So in reality, you are just, as I said before, you are buying the rights to use the player. It's like buying a contract or buying a license, and it's recorded, therefore, not as a service or as the purchase of a good in the current account, but rather as a non-produced, non-financial service in the capital account.
Okay, so then let's make this example a little bit more tricky. So now that Spanish club contracts with a British club for an Argentina player. So we got 3 different countries involved here. How does that work?
Well, let's put to illustrate this an actual example. So now Argentina is playing very well, I mean, at the time of recording this video, and there is this player Enzo Fernandez, and there are several Spanish clubs which seem to be interested in Enzo, and Enzo is playing for a British club. So what matters is not the nationality of the player, but rather the residence of the 2 clubs that will be transacting the player. In this case, a Spanish club and a British club. So in those cases, the Spanish club would be recording an import of a non-produced, non-financial service in the capital account and would be registering a payment that would be recorded in the financial account. And from the point of view of the UK, the same. I mean, UK would be registering an export of a non-produced, non-financial asset and would be receiving a payment that would be recorded in the financial account.
Okay, so now there's another thing that's really interesting, at least to me. When I watch these games, some of these players have fantastic games. I know a Canadian player, Jonathan David, he got a hat trick in the second Canadian game. I mean, there's always Messi who scores, seems like every single game. The value of these players goes up and up and up during the tournament. How does that get recorded, or does it get recorded?
Well, in reality, until there is a transaction, the value of the players is not registered in statistics. The changes in the value of the players are recorded as, or not recorded as, holding gains and losses. It's similar to the value of a house. The price of a house can be going up or down, but this is not reflected in statistics until the house is sold.
Okay, so when I hear a commentator say, "Hey, that's like a $150 million goal on that player," it doesn't impact GDP or the balance of payments?
No. Until an actual transaction takes place, statistics do not record that, and definitely it doesn't record estimated market hype.
Okay, so now, okay, we've been talking about these player transfer fees, but sometimes players just get loaned from one club to another. How does that get recorded? Is that recorded the same way or different?
Well, that's interesting because in those cases there are many clubs that usually lend young players just for the sake of them getting minutes and then increasing their value as well, getting experience and then coming back to their original countries. In those cases, it's as if the club, the borrowing club, would be renting the player for a limited period of time. In those cases, this would be recorded also in the current account as leases or rents.
Okay, so now I want to back up a little bit because, I mean, there's a lot of money going around from one club to another, but at some point in time, the player gets paid for playing. How is that recorded? I mean, is that recorded as a cross-border transaction when they're getting paid for the performance, or is it a domestic transaction? How does that work?
Well, here is where it is important to make this distinction between the money that the club initially pays for the acquisition of the player, which we said that it's just the value of the rights of the player, and this is recorded in the capital account, and the actual payment for the services of the player, which is the wages that the club pays to the player. In those cases, that would be recorded in the current account as compensation of employees and would be recorded in the current account of the balance of payments. But it is important to distinguish that this only happens if the player continues being non-resident. The moment the player, which as it usually happens, moves for more than 1 year to a country, then it becomes a resident in the country, and therefore when the club pays wages to the player, it's a domestic transaction and wouldn't be recorded in the balance of payments.
Thanks, Carlos. I mean, that's very interesting. It's quite amazing, actually, and I wish you all the success for Spain. So the next time a player has a breakout World Cup and suddenly transfers to a club abroad for a massive fee, remember, behind the headlines and the transfer rumors, there's a statistician figuring out how to measure it. And often the key idea is simple. Are we buying a right, renting a service, or paying for work? Thank you, Carlos, for all your insights.
Thank you.